From the air to the depths of the oceans, Earth is filled with life. For some, this is a miracle, but does science have an explanation for how all of this came to be? The theory of evolution has been under attack by its critics for 150 years. They claim the theory is full of flaws, and that these inconsistencies prove the hand of a creator. Who is right? We are searching for the most explosive scientific question of all. Was Darwin right? Or is he wrong? Some people believe that life on our planet is so complex that the only explanation is that a creator made everything. On the other hand, a group of men and women believe that nature itself can create limitless diversity in life without any outside help. Throughout our time, this has remained one of the most controversial debates ever: evolution. A single word, an incredible vision, and the creative mind of one extraordinary man, Charles Darwin. The theory of evolution was born during a fascinating journey. In 1831, Charles Darwin, a naturalist and explorer, set out on a 5-year voyage around the world. Along the way, he collected fossils, plants, and animals. When he returned home to London, he spent the remaining 22 years of his life developing his theory, the theory of how such immense diversity of life came to exist. Even in Darwin's time, scientists already knew that countless extinct creatures had once roamed the earth long ago. Some were strange and terrifying animals that bore no resemblance to any living creature today. Others, more familiar, were clearly related to modern species. Could today's animals and plants be their descendants? Could one species gradually change into another over time? Darwin believed yes. In 1859, he published his ideas in a book called On the Origin of Species. The book shook the world. In it, Darwin presented 3 major points. First, that life is ancient and has existed for hundreds of millions of years. Second, that life began with one or a few simple organisms, which later evolved into the millions of different species we see today. Third, that the entire process of creating these species resulted from one of nature's forces, which Darwin called natural selection. For the religious, this conclusion was deeply troubling. Life did not need a creator. But was Darwin right? We will test Darwin's claims one by one to see if they hold up. If even one claim fails, his entire theory could collapse. First, we look at the mystery of when life began. Darwin did not say he knew how life started, only that it was ancient and that life had existed for hundreds of millions of years. But many of his opponents believed life was new and that God created all living things within the last 10,000 years. Who is right? When did life begin? Fossils are the preserved remains of creatures that lived long ago. How old is the oldest fossil on Earth? According to Darwin's theory, they should be ancient, but his critics said they were young. When geologists examined fossilized microbial structures from remote parts of Australia, they found that the fossils were nearly 3 billion years old. Today, scientists have discovered dozens of fossils even older, billions of years in age. In the first test, is life young or old? Darwin's guess was correct. Life has existed for billions of years. But how did he fare in the second test? Darwin said life began with a single cell or a few simple forms of life, which over millions of years evolved into new species, and those, in turn, evolved into even more. This process created millions of species that became increasingly varied and complex. Creationists believe that life has never changed, that a creator made all living things at once, just as we see them today. Who's right? The best way to find out is to study the fossil record. Museums around the world hold millions of fossils showing how life on Earth appeared at different times. Because each fossil can be dated using radioactive decay, we can know when and in what order each species lived. If Darwin was right, the earliest fossils should be of simple organisms, and as time goes on, they should become more diverse and complex. The oldest fossilized structures were made by bacteria, one of the simplest forms of life. So, life indeed began simply, just as Darwin said. But as time went on, when did living things become more complex? For the next 1.4 billion years, changes were minimal. Life forms remained simple, single-celled organisms. 2 billion years ago, we find single-nucleated cells, the kind found in 99% of living organisms today. These extraordinary creatures belong to the Cambrian period, 500 million years ago. They were far more complex than anything before them. They had heads, limbs, and body structures that show life had become more varied and complex. Dating the fossils confirms Darwin's prediction. Life began simply, without any trace of the later complexity. Living things were not all created at once. They appeared gradually over billions of years. So, the theory of gradual evolution passes its first two tests. But Darwin's greatest idea, and the foundation of his entire theory, is his third claim, his explanation for how life became more complex. Darwin said it was nature itself that created new species. He called this process natural selection. But what is natural selection? And can it really transform a simple bacterium into the rich, complex forms of life we see today? What created this dazzling diversity? How did Earth's countless species come to be? Some think they must be the work of a divine creator. Darwin, however, claimed they evolved naturally through a process he called natural selection. It is one of the most thrilling ideas ever proposed. But what exactly is natural selection, and how does it work? How can a blind, unguided force of nature create new species? Darwin found the answer in an unlikely place: the brutal struggle for survival in the natural world. Nature is cruel. Most creatures born on this planet die before they can reproduce. And this applies not only to animals. Most plants also die young. Yet out of this relentless slaughter, Darwin said, something beautiful emerges. Certain individuals possess traits that make their survival more likely. Sharper eyesight, faster legs, or hooves, abilities that help them escape predators. These individuals are more likely to live long enough to reproduce. This is the survival of the fittest. And those survivors pass their advantageous traits to the next generation. Darwin believed that over many generations, these small differences could lead to big ones: sharper eyes, faster legs, and eventually, entirely new species. This explains how life becomes more complex. But how does it become more diverse? How does one species become two? According to Darwin, the answer lies in the environment. Imagine a group of brown bears leaving their natural home and moving north toward the polar regions. In this new environment, bears with lighter fur can hunt seals more easily. Over time, those lighter bears reproduce more, and eventually, the entire population changes color. According to scientists, this is what is happening. Step by step, a group of brown bears becomes polar bears. One species splits into two. This is Darwin's great theory, evolution by natural selection. Species branch out like limbs of a tree, diverging over time into new forms. It's an extraordinary idea. Tiny, gradual changes can reshape an entire species. During the Cambrian period, 543 million years ago, competition for food, the need to escape predators, and the drive to find mates led to rapid evolution, including the development of eyes, and similarly, it is true for other organs as well. Wings and beating hearts. But biologists still needed to show how these changes happen, how on a microscopic level, they could lead to something like humans. From all the evidence we've seen, Darwin seems to have been right. Life evolves gradually. For millions of years, nature has been transforming simple organisms into the plants and animals we see today. In recent decades, a revolution in biology has changed everything. Researchers now have tools to solve the greatest mystery of all: how one species changes into another. The first clue came in 1953 with the discovery of the structure of DNA. DNA carries the genetic instructions for building life. These instructions are passed from one generation to the next. Unwind its double helix, and you find coded sequences called genes. Humans have about 22,000 genes in their DNA. They contain the information that determines our eye color, height, and everything that makes us who we are. It is genes that tell us what a developing embryo will become. One set of genes produces a fish, another a frog. And genes also show how one species can transform into another over millions of years. A change in just one gene can cause a major shift in body design. When DNA changes, genes change, and so do the creatures themselves. But research in recent years revealed a stunning secret. When biologists began decoding the DNA of plants and animals in the 1970s, they expected the genes of one animal to be vastly different from another. They were shocked. It turns out that genetically, humans are not so different from animals. About 96% of our DNA is identical to that of chimpanzees. Roughly 75% of our genes resemble those of dogs. And we even share about 1/3 of our genes with daffodils. Modern genetics shows that evolution happens faster and more easily than scientists once thought. Natural selection not only explains the rich diversity of the natural world, it is the only logical and rational explanation for it. From the colors of flowers to the fins of whales, from the smallest cell to the human brain itself. The diversity and abundance of life may seem miraculous, but the true miracle lies in the simple natural laws that created it all. And among nature's creations is the human mind, capable of understanding this simple scientific truth: how we came to be and how life continues to thrive on this planet.